An employee conquered his heart and he left her his fortune. But before he died, he discovered something terrible. This story begins with Balmaceda, an elderly man with a great reputation and owner of multiple successful companies. He is a multimillionaire who enjoys traveling with his beloved wife. One afternoon during the summer, Don Balmaceda is sharing a cup of tea with his wife in the garden when she has a sudden fall. Balmaceda immediately took her to the best clinic in town, where the doctors could not determine the cause of her collapse. As the days passed, she was discharged, but she was not in very good health. So Balmaceda assigned his maid to take care of his wife, while he was in charge of getting a doctor to diagnose her. And in the meantime, Virginia, his maid, would take care of his wife. About 3 months passed since Don Balmaceda's wife fell in bed. At this point, Balmaceda had no idea of what to do, and anguish began to reign in his being. Until one early morning, his beloved wife would lose the battle. This represented a hard blow for him, which would lead him to fall into a strong depression. Balmaceda no longer wanted to go out, not even out of his room. He only lamented and cried for his beloved wife, that woman who accompanied him since he was very young, who lived with him the worst moments of his life when he almost lived in the street. That woman for whom he decided to make the best decisions of his life to give her the life she deserved so much. Although he knew he had fulfilled everything he promised her, the emptiness she had left in his heart was irreplaceable. Because of his depression, Virginia had to take care of him, just as she had taken care of his wife. She cleaned his room, washed his clothes, fed him, and made sure he took all his medications. With the passing of the months, Balmaceda began to feel more animated. Virginia's attention raised his spirits, and Virginia had gained all the confidence of Don Balmaceda, to the point that she began to enjoy a certain authority in the mansion. This generated that among the other employees began to run a rumor that between them there was a romance, and that now Virginia would be the new employer. An idea that, although it was false, with the passage of time would take more strength, and Virginia began to dress in the clothes of Balmaceda's wife. This and the fact of how Virginia treated Balmaceda's genre that he himself began to notice her. She had become the spitting image of his beloved wife. A couple more months passed and Balmaceda had fallen completely in love with Virginia. Now she had become his brand new wife. She began to enjoy many gifts that he gave her every day. Very expensive gifts. He had become again that cheerful and energetic person he was before. Everything seemed to be back to normal until one day, for no apparent reason, he relapsed in the same way his late wife had done. Virginia did not know what to do. She was very sad. The man she had fallen in love with was now in poor health, and worst of all, he relapsed in the same way as his wife. Something that worried her enormously, because she already knew what could happen to him. No matter how much money Balmaceda had, there was no way to get even a diagnosis. After 2 months, Don Balmaceda did not show any improvement, so Virginia dedicated herself to take care of him in the best possible way. In addition to this, she also dedicated herself to look for different doctors so that they could check him and try to get a diagnosis or give him some medicine to improve his state of health. One afternoon, he got too much worse. So, with the little energy he had, he called Virginia and asked her to please tell his lawyer to come to the mansion as soon as possible. Virginia was very confused by this request, but she called the lawyer anyway. When they arrived, Balmaceda and the lawyer were talking alone in the room for a while, until the lawyer called Virginia. She did not have the slightest idea of what was happening. There was the lawyer with the document and a pen in his hands. Virginia asked, "What is going on?" To which Balmaceda answered, "My love, please sit down. We have to talk about something very important." At the moment Virginia sat down, the lawyer told her that Balmaceda was in a very critical situation, and not having children or any relatives, he had to choose who would inherit his enormous fortune. So he had chosen her as a way of thanking her for all her attention and the love he felt for her. Virginia did not know what to do. The only thing she could say with tears in her eyes was, "Love, you don't have to do it. You will recover soon. I know it." Balmaceda insisted, and after talking a few minutes, Virginia agreed and signed the document. The days passed and Balmaceda recovered a little. he could at least walk to the bathroom. Everyone in the house was happy with Balmaceda. It seemed that he was going to recover in a miraculous way. He already had a better countenance, he ate a little more, and in some occasions, he went down to the hall and practiced with the employees of the mansion. Virginia was also very cheerful. She never left Balmaceda's side at any time and took care to please his every whim. But this joy would not last long. He would relapse again, but this time he would be bedridden. He could barely move and speak. Now it seemed that his end had come. At 70 years old, he could say that he had a good life and that he had achieved all his goals, to which he only thought during his last days of life in his beloved wife. Now he could be with her again, although he felt sad to have to leave the land to mortals and leave Virginia alone. But he said to himself, she will have a great fortune and several successful companies. She will not have any economic problem and will be able to enjoy a good life. At last, the moment that nobody expected would come. Balmaceda was in a critical state. Nobody expected him to pass that night. So Balmaceda asked Virginia to call his lawyer and his doctor again. He wanted that from the moment of his death, they would begin the steps for Virginia's inheritance. In the room, they were present with the doctor, his lawyer, and Virginia. They talked for a moment. After a while, he began to think for all that Virginia had done for him and for his wife. He only repeated words of gratitude. Before his final moment came, Balmaceda said to Virginia, "Love, can I have some of that comforting red tea that you also used to give my wife?" To which she said, "Of course, honey." At this, she brings him the tea, but Balmaceda interrupts her before she can give it to him and asks, "Is this the same one you used to give my wife?" She somewhat nervously affirms with a, "Yes, my love, it is the same," in a clearly more nervous voice. Balmaceda asked her again, "Are you sure it is the same one you gave to my wife in those last days of her life?" She again said, "Yes." Virginia began to look very uneasy about Balmaceda's questions, the doctor's gaze, and the lawyer. Slowly, she approached Balmaceda with a spoonful of tea, but at the last moment, he snatches it from her hand and stands up. Everyone was surprised. No one knew what was happening at that moment. Balmaceda says, "Did you think you were going to do to me what you did to my wife? That tea was the one that killed her. You did it on purpose, and that is why in these months I pretended that I was drinking it. But the time has come for me to finish you once and for all." The doctor and the lawyer were stunned by what was happening. So the lawyer took the tea and took it to the police laboratory for a test. When the results came back, they showed that it was a powerful alkaloid called strychnine, a very toxic, lethal substance, which, despite being somewhat bitter, was masked by the red tea with which it was mixed. Upon discovery, Virginia was arrested for murder and attempted murder. Don Balmaceda now visits his wife's grave and whispers to her, "Rest in peace, my love." Dear friends, this is the end of today's story. We hope you enjoyed it, and we invite you to join us in our next video. See you soon!